Welcome in to Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network and also streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, I think some other social media platforms maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I am your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me every day on Twitter. My handle is just my name, at Chelsa Messinger. And if you've been wondering, yeah, I've been away for quite a bit. I've been on maternity leave. Everything has gone well with me and my daughter. She's now 6 weeks old, and everything is going swimmingly. Don't worry, I've still been placing a lot of wagers because I've been sitting on the couch a lot. So it's a good excuse to watch sports and win some money to buy her some new outfits. As always, we've got a full slate on the show today, starting with college basketball. Sean Higgs is going to give us some plays on UNC, NC State, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Kansas, Oklahoma State, and maybe a little NHL sprinkled in there as well. Second segment, we are talking to Craig Trapp about the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's one of the most heavily bet games of the year. We're talking some of the prop bets, some of the player bets, and of course the actual game itself. And it's NBA time. It's basketball season, obviously. I would be remiss to not mention the passing of Kobe Bryant. Obviously a legend, an icon, and will be sorely missed, passing away at the age of just 41. Just terribly heartbreaking. And especially for people my age, that's the GOAT that we grew up with. So tough times in the NBA. I know it's going to be tough for a lot of these players to play through, but we will be talking about some of the NBA games on the slate. We've got a great show. If you want to stick with us, we'll give you plenty of ways to make some money on basketball, football, college basketball, of course, and NBA. We're back after the break with some college basketball. Stick with us on Picks and Parlays. Are we back on? I'm not sure. Are we on the air? Oh, they caught me brushing my hair. Obviously, I'm a little rusty. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger, coming off maternity leave. I'm back, and I'm back in full force, ready to make you guys some money. We've got Sean Higgs rocking the Picks and Parlays pullover. Nice, Sean. How have you been? How have you played?
Yes.
How have your plays been doing?
Damn, we've been good on the show here. Pretty good with college hoops. We've been cashing it, and you never have to worry about you catching me brushing my hair on the show. That's never going to happen.
Unless you're wearing one of your blonde wigs that, in case the viewers didn't know, Sean owns a blonde wig, and he breaks it out for special occasions or when he loses bets. Let's talk about this college basketball slate, starting with North Carolina and North Carolina State. Obviously, we know that I am a Wolfpack alum, so I try to stay away from NC State sometimes because I don't like being disappointed. NC State favored -6 in this one. Total sits at 144.5. Obviously, North Carolina this year is not the UNC team. Just dropped something of the past. It's a terrible, terrible season for UNC. They're 9-10, 6-3 against the number. NC State 14-6, 10-9-1 against the spread. Sean, initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this. What do you say about NC? 9-10. They were up to a couple weeks ago. They were still laying points like they're a good team. They're not a good team. They lose their one guard. No. They fall apart. Roy Williams seems to do less with more as he gets older with age. And now you got NC State. I don't want to lay a number here. I think they're going to win. I have them probably. They should win this game by 10. Let's be honest. Carolina's beaten them 9 out of the last 10 times straight up. But like every other team, well, except for North Carolina's last opponent, who actually they finally snapped their losing streak. It's been payback time on these guys. It's, you know what? You've smacked us around for decades. You've been awesome. Now it's our turn. But I also like the under here. A couple good trends work in our favor. And you said 144 because I saw it was at 146 earlier. So maybe the line's come down a little bit. 6 straight unders for the Wolfpack, 7 straight at home here. And the way Carolina's been shooting outside of the last game, I think that's the anomaly. I'm going to look at the under here. But you're not going to get any fight from me if you take North Carolina minus 5.5, 6 here. I just think, like when I say North Carolina State, I should say over North Carolina. This Carolina team, I just do not like. What have they shown us? They're 9-10 on the year. They're not a good team. They still get a built-in bias put to them with the number wise. And you know what? Let's buy into it and take the under here and maybe sprinkle a little Wolfpack in as well.
Right. To North Carolina's credit, they have been missing their leading scorer in Cole Anthony, and that plays to the under if he doesn't play. He has been hinting at a return, but people are thinking that he's not going to play against NC State. NC State is 11-1 at home, 6-5-1 against the number at home, but they're coming off a loss to Georgia Tech, where I wanted to take them. NC State was favored in that one, but they lost straight up. So NC State's one of those teams that sometimes when they've got things going and they look like they're playing well, they'll make costly turnovers at the end of the game and fumble it away. Meanwhile, North Carolina is trending upwards. As you mentioned, they're coming off a good win over Miami, scoring over 90 points. So maybe they're back. I don't know, but I don't know if it's too early to trust them. However, 6 or 5.5 points is a lot, right?
Yeah, well, that's why I kind of like the under here more. I mean, just you had lost 5 straight before that. You looked like you were dead in the water. Then you drop a 90 spot, which against any team put up 90 in college basketball, kind of you look at like, well, that's a lot of points. You know, it's college, it's not NBA, so 90 is a big number to get to. But still, that being said, I can't really trust them here. I'm going to go back to the under, playing with the Wolfpack trends and the way Carolina's been playing before that. So under is the major play here for me.
Yeah, NC State hit the under in 6 of their last 8 games. Moving on, let's go to Wisconsin and Iowa. Iowa is favoring this one. Minus 5.5 is the number I have. Total sits at 135.5. Iowa is coming off a 4-game win streak and averaging 80 points a game, which in college, that's quite a bit. Wisconsin's 12-8, 8-12 against the spread. Iowa 14-5, 12-6-1 against the spread. What are we thinking on this one?
You know, we did this a Big Ten game last week with Nick. I did, and I'm like, this Big Ten. They're talking about 10 teams getting into the tournament. I'm like, they're terrible. Like Wisconsin, well, now they're 12-8, but Minnesota, Purdue, these are 10, 11 win teams. Wisconsin's not that good. They're 12-8. They're a 12-8 team. They're terrible. I not to get on the rant like I had the other day with Nick about getting 10 teams in. This is a joke. I mean, come out with this nonsense. Give us smaller schools, please. Tournament, do the right thing for the fans of mid majors. Listen, I'm going to take Iowa here. Whiskey just got blitzed by Purdue. They've lost at Michigan State. Iowa's a good squad. 3 wins over ranked teams. Again, you got Rutgers. I'm happy for Rutgers. They're, it's my state school. Good for them, doing good. Michigan. They beat Maryland, so they're getting a job done. And then you get a bad team coming there. McCaffrey's a good coach. This team always seems to have like a 23-24 win season, always tough at home. 23 of the last 25 they've won. This year, 11-1. Wisconsin had 16 rebounds the last game. 16 rebounds. Is that a joke? But I mean, I got zero faith in that team. Iowa, 5.5. I'm shocked the line came down. Who's buying whiskey? I'm not buying whiskey. They're not a good team.
Well, they're 1-5 against the spread in their last 6. So not looking good for Wisconsin when it comes to recent trends, at least. 16
rebounds in a game. That's no. And you're on the road again. Good luck. Good luck, a team that's won 11-12 and 23-28 at home. Iowa.
They got to learn to box
5.5. Let's go.
All right, let's go on to our next game, which is...
It wasn't like they're making their shots either.
Kansas.
Like, hey, you got 60 rebounds because we shot 90%.
Well, they need to try a little harder because you're not going to win games by not rebounding. All right. Kansas, Oklahoma State next up on the docket. Kansas -9, Total at 133.5. Kansas, of course, has been making headlines for that big fight against Kansas State. They were favored by a lot against Tennessee. I remember taking that game. They didn't cover. I took Tennessee in that one. I think Tennessee was plus 11. Kansas was minus 11, obviously. So do we like Kansas in this one to cover a big number against Oklahoma State, a team that's 10-9, 7-12 against the spread?
Again, big number. You're still without the Sousa's out, McCormick's out again, and part of me kind of don't want to take Oklahoma State because they're terrible. Like they're one of the worst teams at points, field goals, 3-point percentage.
Right, they're not Tennessee. They're not as good as Tennessee.
No, but you know what? They do got, they got, I think, like 4 seniors on this team, so maybe they play up a little bit. Kansas, all right, you went to the well, you're off the big brawl, you're in a dogfight with Tennessee. Now you go on the road. 5-6 man rotation. Are you better than Iowa? Better than Oklahoma State? Of course you are. Are you going to win by double digits? I don't know. I'm going to take the home dog here. Got to go home dog with Oklahoma State plus the 9.
Now that I'm looking at my notes, Kansas was actually a 13-point favorite against Tennessee. So that was really a big number.
And Tennessee's a team that plays defense too. It's a bizarre. I mean, listen, Kansas plays defense too, putting up like 60, allowing 60 points a game and shooting 50% a game from the field. But you lose two big contributors because again, Kansas doesn't run out 9 or 10 guys. They're playing like all the big schools, 6-7 man rotations. That's about it with a big star. And you lose two key components. We see how North Carolina plays. So I don't know. I mean, 9, let's be honest, it's 10 points. They got to win by 10 on the road. I don't know. I don't care how bad Oklahoma State is. They're going to get up for Kansas. I'm in 10 points or 9 points at home. Beat me by 10. I'll take my chances on the big dog.
Yeah, and we'll hope Oklahoma State can make some free throws towards the end because that's the worst when you have a number and your fate rests on 18, 19, 20-year-olds making free throws. That's always fun. Sean, you got a free play on NHL real quick? We got like 30 seconds.
I think, you know what? I'm looking at this Caps game. Why? I mean, 125 looks a little short. That looks a little short to me, so I might be playing a little Montreal there. And I like under Dallas and Tampa Bay also. 6.
All right.
Coming out of the All-Star break, it's going to be slow and sloppy early.
All right. Thanks again, Sean Higgs, for coming on with your plays. We're back after the break talking Super Bowl. Stick with us on Picks and Parlays. Okay. How long is this segment? Okay, perfect. And we're back on Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube if you want to check us out there. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me every day on Twitter. My handle is just my name, @Chelsa Messinger, and I always appreciate your comments, feedbacks, memes. Lately, I've been into Baby Yoda a lot. Super cute. All right. Let's get into our plays. The Super Bowl is coming up. It's one of the most heavily bet games. It's probably the most heavily bet game. I think that's fair to say for sharps and normal, just casual bettors alike. We've got Craig Trapp joining us to talk a little Super Bowl. Craig, Super Bowl, Chiefs, Niners. Who do you like? Or do you want to dive in right there, or do you want to warm up with some prop bets?
Well, first of all, rough day here. Obviously, the news, Kobe Bryant and his daughter and others, just want to say, wow. I mean, when you hear the kind of news, it just puts everything in reality. And, those late losses or those bad beats that you get, not so hard when at least you're waking up the next day. So I want to say, thoughts and prayers go out to all the families involved. And, obviously, probably my second favorite all-time player behind Michael Jordan. Maybe Nick Van Exel in there, but definitely up there for Kobe Bean Bryant.
Oh, for sure. I was just saying in the first segment that for people my age, that's the GOAT that we grew up with. I was a little too young to really witness Michael Jordan in his prime. So for all of us, Kobe Bryant was really the best to ever do it in our lifetime that we got to witness. So he seems so untouchable, and his confidence and everything. He's really the last person you would expect to be taken off this earth, and that just shows you how precious life is. Making the tough transition. Obviously, we're here to talk about the Super Bowl, so let's dive in. Chiefs Niners. Do you want to give us your play first, or do you want to talk about some props and some sides?
Well, first of all, you got the Chiefs slight favorite here, which I really thought the Chiefs money would come in hot and heavy just because they looked so impressive from being down 24-0 to the Texans, and even in against Tennessee where they were down, and then they were just blowing teams, both of those teams out in the second half. Chiefs favored just by 1 point here, and the total at 54. We have seen that total bet up a little bit. My top play is going to actually be on the total. I'm leaning towards the over. But when you go to the side here, most people, that's what they want, because most bettors aren't. If you're a novice bettor, not betting the total, you're betting the side. I think you have to give a slight edge to Kansas City. That improved defense this year, that's going to be the key, because the 49ers obviously have the edge when it comes to defense and probably the run game for sure. But the Chiefs, I always like betting the best quarterback, and the best quarterback, without a doubt in my mind, is Patrick Mahomes. So I'm going to take the Chiefs -1 in this one. And I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks here. I just think there's going to be a lot of points. I think the 49ers get their share of points, but it's probably going to be through the great ground attack that they have.
Right. It's really an interesting matchup because it's so different on both sides. First of all, you've got the Chiefs that are this explosive offense, and then you've got the Niners who are known for their pass rush. And as we saw in the Titans game, the Titans could not get a pass rush on Patrick Mahomes, and he really made them pay. So it'll be interesting for me to see what Mahomes can really do with some pressure in his face. I think he still operates pretty well out of the pocket. He scrambles, he does those little sidearm passes, he makes it work, and he's got so many weapons around him. But it's different when it's the Super Bowl. I think it's such a huge game. Granted, neither of these quarterbacks have been there before, Garoppolo or Mahomes. Andy Reid's been there, so I would give the edge to him in that regard. But I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I'm with you there on the over. I think points will be scored. I just don't see anybody slowing down that Kansas City offense. But any other plays you like in this one?
Well, I think though we're going to have a show later in the week. I know you're going to be back later in the week. We're easing you back in softly, but later in the week we're going to have a handicapper roundtable where we're going to talk a lot of props. So I'll save some of my more extensive props, but I think I'm probably going to be leaning towards all the over categories for the Chiefs, especially the passing categories. I just think you're going to see a lot of passing yards. I do think the one interesting thing that the 49ers defense brings is they don't have to blitz to get pressure, and that's going to be a key, because a lot of teams, they blitz Mahomes. That's when he gets up. He makes these amazing throws, like you say, under pressure. They won't have to do that, the 49ers. So I think that will be the key. If they can get pressure on the Chiefs with their their front four, I think the 49ers have a chance to stay in this one. But I think we've seen the Chiefs make adjustments late. So I think maybe if you're going to play the 49ers, you play them early, say first quarter, first half, and then you play the Chiefs for the game. And then, like I said, I like the over for the game as well. I think that's the way I would probably head towards this. As far as props, like I said, I would lean towards the over in the Kansas City passing category. So over passing yards, over passing attempts for Patrick Mahomes. And then I would also Kelsey. I think Travis Kelsey's going to have a big game. Like he's been their best player probably for 2 or 3 years. I think I would take the over receptions and over yards on Kelsey as well.
Also, when you bet this game, would you wait for this number to move any?
Well, not if I was a Chiefs bettor. I think the Chiefs, like I said, I was surprised when we did the opening line report of this, probably been a week ago now. I think it was last Sunday. I thought the Chiefs would probably move up closer to 3. I didn't think it'd get to 3, but I thought 2.5 would be a lock. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that yet. So I'm a little shocked, but if I was going to bet Kansas City, I would not wait. I would bet it now. Go ahead and get that 1. I do see a 1.5 out there. And if you're going to bet the over, I would definitely bet it now, because I hear there's some big sharps out there that are trying that are predicting that this thing's going to get to 56 for the total. So if you want to bet the over, I would suggest betting it now at 54. And those sharp bettors, by the way, are waiting to get to 56 to guess what? They're going to bet the under. So if you're going to bet the over, I would suggest you get the better number and bet it now.
Right. I already have 55, so I think it's moving as we speak. Betting the Super Bowl might be a little different, just because, as I mentioned, more people bet it. Do you think the line is sharper? How is betting the Super Bowl different than just your run-of-the-mill game, you think? Or is it different?
Well, I mean, for a handicapper, I consider it different in the fact that you have that extra week. Both teams have the extra week, which very few times do you have both teams coming in on a bye. A lot of times mid-season on, you have one team coming in, one team not coming in off a bye. Both teams coming in pretty healthy. Usually that's the case, I think, this year in both of these teams. And then, you have some odd things, though, with the Super Bowl, like the extra long timeouts, the extra long halftime. So experience does matter. Of course, like you mentioned earlier, not a ton of players with a ton of experience. Richard Sherman for the 49ers. Of course, like you said, Coach Andy Reid was there with the Eagles before. I just don't see, you both quarterbacks coming in. I guess you would say Jimmy G has experience. He was with the Patriots, but he wasn't under center, of course.
He didn't play,
that's
though.
the difference.
Yeah.
Right. That's the difference. And, pressure bothers players in a different way. All that expectations and the extra time to think about it, which they've had a whole extra week. You have of course, media day, on Wednesday or Thursday, that is totally awkward for most players, because, what defensive lineman that's a backup is getting talked to on a normal week? They just don't have that. Now every player is, of course, put through the ringer at media day.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see. Andy Reid's a great coach, but I think it's haunted him that he hasn't won. I just remember that Eagles game. All eyes will be, I really want to see him win one, if nothing else, just so we can see more of that meme of him at the punt, pass, and kick when he was a little kid.
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't say little. He was huge.
No. He was in his own weight class. Let's just say that. And, I think, like you say, a lot of these coaches get that, where you say you can't win one. They can't win the big one. They can't win the big one. Well,
right.
Guess what? There's been a lot of coaches that have lost to Belichick over the last, 2 decades. So there's a lot of coaches that fall in that category. But this is his opportunity. Obviously, they didn't have to beat the Patriots this time, and I think he has a very good chance. I think this is a pretty fair matchup. I think the line is right about where it should be, 1-2 points here. And, like the total, I wish I would have got the total. I'm just being honest. I wish I would have got the total when it came out in the low 50s instead, like you say, 54, 55 now. But I still think we're pretty safe on the over. I think the Chiefs get 30. That's just my prediction. I'm probably going to have that as one of my props, just a little whet your appetite prop that we're going to talk about on Friday.
Right. Sometimes you can take team totals. Like if you don't trust the Chiefs to win, but you think they're going to score a lot of points, maybe that's a way to go in that regard. Hopefully it's a better game than last year. Talking about the over, last year, what was it, 12-9? That was a terrible game as far as viewers go. And obviously the Patriots, oh man, they won another one. Congrats.
Well, not only, but last year was the outlier. The recent Super Bowls, the last 4, I think 3 or 4 have went over. That one, of course, went way under. So, I mean, I think you're going to see a difference this year, because the Patriots, at least headed into that game, the defense was playing a lot better. Let's be honest, the Chiefs' offense is on fire. The 49ers' offense,
right.
Their run game has been on fire, and that's what both of these teams kind of struggle with. When the 49ers lost this year, now a lot of people said it was the injuries. They could not stop the pass. The Chiefs, when they have issues, they can't stop the run. So I think that's why I like the over in this one, probably as my top play.
Even though I think the Chiefs did a good job of adjusting against the Titans, because Derrick Henry, obviously, I mean, that man was on fire. No one could stop him. But eventually in the second half, they kind of slowed him down at least a little bit to where he wasn't getting, 7-8 yards a carry. So I think the Chiefs defense is looking a little better than they did earlier the year. And of course, some of those games, the 49ers didn't have George Kittle. So got to take that with a grain of salt. After the break, we've got more stuff. We want to thank Craig for joining us. We'll be talking about more Super Bowl bets as the week progresses. As I mentioned, when we get back, we're talking NBA with Tony T. Stick with us on Picks and Parlays. Plenty of games to get to after the break. And then what are the segment times for this one? Okay. 51. Okay. And we are back on Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you check us out, we are at Picks and Parlays on Twitter. Just search Picks and Parlays on Facebook and YouTube, and you shall find us there. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger. It's my handle. It's my name. And I always appreciate your feedback. Right now, we're diving into some NBA games to wager on. We've got Tony T joining us from out west. Tony T, can you hear me? How are you?
I can hear you, Chelsa. I'm doing fine out here. Of course, with the NBA, it's always checking the lines and checking the injury reports. Of course, now we're seeing a lot of players sit out, soreness issues with these players playing. It's a difficult game to play on wood, so I'll tell you that.
Right, and especially you're in LA. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Kobe Bryant's passing. The legendary, the epic, the 41-year-old superstar passing. And we saw Kyrie Irving. He sat out a game because he was close friends with Kobe. So it's affecting players, to say the least. And emotionally, that's got to be tough to play through. What's the vibe out there? And do you think it's affecting some of these games?
Yeah, it's a total sadness out here in LA. And we even saw it with the coaches. I mean, if you saw the Doc Rivers pregame interview he had before the game against the Magic, that was hard. It was really stunning to see. You know, the sadness across the league, former players coming out. You know, Shaq was very close to him, and of course the Laker organization. He was a lifetime Laker. And of course, it's just really sad news, and it's going to be tough here when they're going to be playing the Clippers on Tuesday, and it's going to be really tough to watch there, as the fans will be grieving both sides.
Right. Obviously, that makes everything that we're talking about seem very trivial. So making the tough transition to some of the games that we're talking about. Let's start with Cavs Pistons. The Pistons are favored in this one, -6.5. Total is around 221. The Cavs are 12-34, 19-25 and 2 against the spread. The Pistons are 17-30, so not two of the greatest teams in the NBA. 17-28 and 2 against the spread, and they're only 9-15 against the spread at home. Who do you like in this one? Do you like the Pistons to cover at home? Do you like the Cavs, or do you like playing the total?
I'm going to take the points here. I don't want to lay. I'm going to take the Cavs here plus 6.5. Don't want to lay these many points with this Pistons against any NBA team. Their defensive form is not very good. We're looking over their past 5 games, allowing 47% shooting. And of course, Pistons dealing with some key injuries in the rotation. Tony Snell, Reggie Jackson, questionable here. Blake Griffin out for the season. When you look at the Cavs, they've been a bit competitive. They've covered 4 of their past 6 on the road, 4 straight against teams with losing records on the road. So I guess they pick and choose the teams they can beat. They come in fired up. They've covered 2 straight against the Pistons. So, Chelsa, the only way I could look at this one is taking the Cavs plus the 6.5.
All right, rolling right along to the Spurs and the Bulls. The Spurs are favored in this one, minus 1.5, or minus 2, depending on where you get it. The over-under is around 218. The Spurs are 20-24, 18-25 against and 1 against the spread, excuse me. Bulls are 18-30, 23-24, and 1 against the spread. The Spurs lost as 5-point favorites against the Suns. So would you take them in this one?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the Spurs here, laying the 1.5. They're going to be in a back-to-back. They dropped the game on Sunday afternoon, had a day game against Toronto, competitive 110-106 decision, and they had won and covered 3 of 4 in back-to-back games this season. So I'm okay with the spot. And the reason for that is because, San Antonio coach Greg Popovich, he does spread minutes around. 11 players average over 12.5 minutes per game. And San Antonio is in the better shooting form right now of the 2. Bulls really not shooting very well from 3, just 30%, but it's the Bulls defense that has been really bad. 50% shooting in that span and allowing nearly 40% from the 3-point line. And of course, as the Spurs are taught to shoot that 3, and the Bulls cannot defend the 3. Markkanen out, that's a big loss here for Chicago. He'll be out for 2 months. I'm going to just go ahead and take the Spurs here at laying the 1.5.
All right, let's go on to, let's see how I have these numbers. The Kings and the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are favored in this one, minus 3. Total is around 226. Do we like Minnesota, or do we like Sacramento getting a few points?
I'm going to go with the total here, Chelsa. I'm going to take the under 226. The Kings are really a screwed up team. They really are. And I'll tell you why, because Luke Walton took them over. And they had this really nice, fast-paced team, and decided, we're going to slow it down, or we're going to focus on defense. Well, how did that work? It didn't work. So they tried to change it. They changed their style. We're going to go up-tempo. Guess faced It didn't work. So they faced Chicago Bulls. They slow it down. They win 98-81. So you got to figure the Kings will resort back to that defensive style that worked in that Chicago game. Now, when they first met, they combined for 209 points. It went under in that first meeting. You look at the teams, they're not shooting very well. Kings past 5 games, just 45%. And the Timberwolves at home shooting just 42% on the season. So I'm going to go with the, I don't know if, Tony Brown's one of the newer voices and faces we have on the show. And I'm going to give him his angle. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You slowed it down. You won against the Bulls. Let's slow it down here. Let's take Sacramento and Minnesota under 226.
All right. So let's go on to the Mavericks and the Thunder. Some of these games, some of the lines might move because of injuries and things that might be game time decisions. Mavericks 28-17 on the season, 23-19-3 against the spread. Meanwhile, the Thunder are 28-19, 32-15 against the spread, coming off a win against Minnesota, and the Mavericks coming off a loss at Utah. Initial thoughts on this one, Tony T.
Yeah, when I looked at the power rating, it looked to me as Dallas as a point favorite, but the odds makers opened it at Oklahoma City at -1.5, and that's the side I prefer. I'll take OKC minus the 1.5. We know both teams are dealing with some injuries in the rotation, but the OKC big man Steven Adams is off the injury report, and he does a great job of rim protection and defending for the Thunder. Now, Dallas took a big hit. They lost Dwight Powell for the season with an Achilles injury. He was a rebounder and defender for them. Mavs have lost 2 of 3. They've dropped their step-up games to the Clippers at home, Jazz on the road, and they've had trouble beating teams with over 600 winning percentage this season. So I'd look here at the Thunder. One thing to note here for the Mavericks, their defense form not good, allowing 47% shooting, but it's OKC with Chris Paul engineering that offense. So he's got players that listen to him, and they're responding over that span of 5 games. 52% shooting, 43% from the 3-point line, and they've covered 18 of 23 at home this season. I like that. I'm going to take OKC laying the 1.5. All
right, let's go on to, let's see who's on the docket. Rockets Jazz. This is one of those tricky ones because we're not entirely sure who might be playing. As of now, it's looking like Westbrook and Harden both won't be playing for the Rockets, which obviously is a big chunk of their offense. The Rockets 28-16 on the year, but just 21-23 against the spread. Meanwhile, the Jazz are 32-13, 24-19-2 against the spread. And the Jazz, they've won 4 in a row. Who would you like in this one?
You know, that's the question mark here with the injuries. We just saw a line, the first line that came out on this one now has Utah favored by 11.5 points. That's a big number here. I would not lay that with Utah. I would lay it probably up to 6, but you're probably not going to find that. It does appear that Russell Westbrook will sit for the Rockets here for rest. Now, James Harden sat out Sunday with a thigh injury. Now, the Rockets are in a back-to-back. They've now lost 5 of their past 7 after that 117-110 road loss Sunday at Denver. Houston in a brutal back-to-back spot, playing in 2 high-elevation cities in back-to-back games. They played at Denver on Sunday, now Monday at Utah. We saw a team do that recently, got blown out. I think it was Indiana. They got blown out at Utah recently. One thing to note here with the Rockets, they have failed to cover 4 of 6 in back-to-back games because they score 11 fewer points offensively in back-to-backs. That's why I will take the under in this game. I anticipate the line to be around 226. I'll go under in this one because I notice here the back-to-back situations, the injuries to the 2 star players here for the Rockets. The Rockets, they don't perform well offensively in back-to-backs, so I'm going to look here to the under in this one.
Something I've noticed in the Rockets games, it looks like there's some apathy. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me being a frustrated bettor when I play them sometimes. But sometimes it just looks like their heads aren't in it. And for a team that good and for such a big market city, I know this game's on the road, but when they play at home, it just seems like the crowd's not into it. Just one of those anomalies I've noticed with the Rockets. I don't know if it's pertinent or if it plays in this one, but just something I've noticed.
Oh, you're right on. You're right on there. And I'll tell you what the issue is. It's Russell Westbrook shooting, and that's really what's been the cause here. If you look at him, his efficiency state rankings as an offensive player has been bad. He takes a lot of bad shots. You know, bad shooting does not sit well with teammates because NBA is a very hard game to play. You have to work position. It's hard to get open. When you have an open look, you want the ball and you don't get it. It can be very frustrating having to run up and down the court and realizing that your point guard's not smart with the basketball. And I think that's what the issue is right now with Houston.
Well, everybody, that was the point of contention when Westbrook and Harden went there to Houston together. You know, it was the team chemistry. They're both scorers. Harden is wanting to shoot threes and get fouled in the process. And then Westbrook wants to drive through the lane and get fouled in the process. But it's hard to have 2 of those scoring type players on the same team. It's just tough, and we'll see how it progresses as the season goes on. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting mix there in Houston.
Yeah, and you also have to factor the D'Antoni system. He likes the 3-point shooting. So now Westbrook comes over to a team that wants to shoot the 3. He's taking threes, but he's not very good at it, and he's not making good decisions with his shot selection. I
will say they do have some good role players. It's always fun to watch Patrick Beverley. He's such an antagonistic player if you watch him. But yeah, they have some good defenders. So come playoffs, it'll be interesting to see them. It's just the West is so tough that I don't know if they'll be in contention for the West.
Yeah, Capella's a tough one. Now, remember, Beverly's now with the Clips now. So it's Capella that's a really good defensive start down low.
Wow.
But the Clips got a good win today, though. I will say that. So, but you know what? They probably wish they had Beverly back. You know, that's someone they could use on their team.
He'll always be a Rocket to me, I guess. Clint Capella is who I was thinking of, the one with the hair spot.
Yes.
Oh,
it's Capella. He's
my first day back, and I've already made a big screw up. Oh, well.
Oh, no, it's not. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. I mean, listen, we screw up all the time. Trust me on that one.
All right, we've got a couple minutes.
Again, we got the Magic and Heat still that are scheduled to go. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that one. Magic Heat. Let me look at my notes. Judging by the power rankings, Magic would be favored -7 in this one. Total around 208 against the Heat. I don't know if I mentioned that. Heat 31-14, and one of the better teams in the East in contention, of course, behind the Bucks. Magic are 21-25 on the year. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, power rates here. Miami, the home team at -7, total 208, as you said. Orlando's on a back-to-back, but I still would prefer the Orlando side at +7 for this reason. Look at the Heat injuries. These are impact players. Jimmy Butler questionable, Kendrick Nunn questionable, Gordon Dragic questionable. They're all dealing with injuries. Those are scores for Miami. And Heat have failed to cover 3 of 4, and Orlando did win the first meeting by 20 at home over 3 weeks ago. And the Heat have had issues shooting effectively against this Magic team. So they play in the division, they play each other, and just the Magic they know how to defend the Heat. I'll take the points in this one.
All right, those are NBA plays at the end of the show. We'll run through them all. Nice little recap. Thanks, Tony T, for joining us. After the break, we'll get to that, the recap of all of today's plays. We'll be back on Picks and Parlays after the break. You guessed it. Stick with us. On the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube if you want to join us there. We're really easy to find on all of your favorite social media platforms. Just search Picks and Parlays. We're usually the first thing that pops up. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. I'm back from maternity leave and trying not to be too rusty. It's been a long time, but I've enjoyed the show so far. And if you haven't been paying attention, or if you're just now tuning in, don't worry. We're about to recap all of the picks from today's show. Obviously, it's been a tough time in the sports world and really just, the world upon news of Kobe Bryant's passing. He was a legend. He was an icon, taken really way too soon at age 41, dying in a plane or a helicopter crash. Growing up, he was one of my favorite players. I know a lot of people probably felt the same. So doing research today felt a little trivial, but making the tough transition. Here are today's recaps from today's show. Sean Higgs gave us college basketball picks. NC State hosting UNC. He's taking the under at 146. Wisconsin, Iowa, taking Iowa in that one, -5.5. Kansas, Oklahoma State, taking Oklahoma State at +9. Moving on to our Super Bowl and NBA picks. Craig Trapp is taking the Chiefs at -1 and also likes a lot of offense in that one. Cavs, Pistons, he is taking the Cavs at +6.5. And then Tony T gave us some NBA picks as well. Magic at Heat, taking the Magic +7. Mavs at Thunder, taking Oklahoma City in that one +1. Spurs, Bulls, taking the Spurs -2. Rockets, Jazz, taking Utah -6. And Cavs, Pistons, taking the Cavs at +6.5 to cover that number. As always, thanks for joining us. We've got plenty of Super Bowl content coming your way, prop bets, all kinds of bets. And of course, some basketball and maybe a little hockey sprinkled in. Thanks for joining us. We're back tomorrow. Stick with us on Picks and Parlays. Until then, signing off. See you guys later.